In popular culture, the word Dahmer has come to stand for pure evil. Because of this, it can be challenging to understand who Jeffrey Dahmer was, what he did, how he was caught, and what happened to him in the end, even if you are familiar with his name. Even though Dahmer was a monster, he was a complex one. His victims and the neighborhood that endured years of suffering as a result of his killings and received inadequate justice. But what are some of the things the Netflix series left out? Here, we will share it all with you. Remember, you were forewarned. Between the years of 1978 and 1991, Jeffrey Dahmer, one of the most infamous serial killers in American history, killed 17 victims who were men. But the victims of his horrific crimes, including rape, dismemberment, necrophilia, and cannibalism, as well as Dahmer's own life story, have long been overshadowed by the horrible nature of his deeds. And we really only knew of 17 murders, but we know there was more. Dahmer was born on May 21, 1960, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. On the surface, he appeared to have a relatively normal childhood. But emotional trauma lurked beneath the surface. By his own account, his mother suffered a nervous breakdown. He was affected by his parents' acrimonious divorce, and he thought his brother was the family favorite. We are aware that as he grew older, Dahmer withdrew more. He had a serious drinking problem and a fixation with animal carcasses by the time he was in high school. When Dahmer was 18 years old, he committed his first murder. He picked up Stephen Hicks, a hitchhiker, and drove him to his parents' house in Ohio. Hicks was struck with a 10-pound dumbbell by Dahmer, who then dissected, dissolved, ground up, and dispersed the body parts throughout the garden. At 18 years old, this person was already as twisted as they come. He would eventually admit that he had murdered Hicks in order to keep the mysterious visitor. Despite finishing high school, Dahmer was unable to finish college because of his drinking. Instead, he joined the army and worked as a physician in Germany from 1979 to 1981. He was discharged and sent to live with his grandmother in West Allis, Wisconsin, as his drinking continued to cause issues. Stephen Tuomi, his second victim in 1987, was murdered after being picked up from a pub and brought to a hotel room. According to reports, Dahmer had no recollection of killing Tuomi when he woke up next to the body. Not only was this guy like a wild murderous animal, his psychotic behavior makes him one of the most insane serial killers ever. The killings committed by Dahmer persisted infrequently throughout the late 1980s. He routinely enticed individuals back from bars and performed progressively gruesome things on them, including eating body parts and having sex with them. Although he was in legal problems for sexual offenses, his killings remained unpunished. His murderous rampage intensified after relocating to a Milwaukee apartment in May 1990. By the summer of 1991, he was killing around one person every single week. Neighbors reported weird scents and noises emanating from Dahmer's flat to the police. In one case, a victim lobotomized by Dahmer made it out of the apartment and asked for help. When law enforcement questioned Dahmer, he avoided capture, saying the man was his intoxicated boyfriend. Dahmer had become obsessed with the idea that through mutilation, he could put his victims into a zombie-like state, using them as submissive sexual partners. Pretty normal stuff, right? There are at least 17 victims who have been named. With his soft-spoken nature, Dahmer charmed young guys into becoming his victims by performing acts of necrophilia and cannibalism on them. As trophies, Dahmer frequently kept severed body parts. After the case's details were made public, Dahmer was the focus of a huge number of non-fiction books and films. On July 22, 1991, Dahmer was only apprehended after a struggle with Tracy Edwards, one of his victims. Edwards was able to escape and lead law enforcement to Dahmer's residence, where he was detained following the discovery of images of severed limbs and dead bodies. The majority of Dahmer's victims were men, but there are women he did these things to as well. The prolonged lack of punishment revealed how the authorities ignored the very community Dahmer preyed upon. Investigations at his residence revealed a total of 7 skulls and a human heart when he was finally apprehended. The trial for Dahmer began on January 30, 1991, after a jury indicted him on 15 counts of murder. Dahmer invoked his insanity to enter a not guilty plea in the face of a mountain of proof against him. His irrational inclinations, according to the defense, were uncontrollable. Yeah, in the mind of a psychopath maybe? Death penalty or jail? What do you think he deserved? Eventually, he was judged sane and convicted on all 15 murder charges following a 2-week trial. He received 15 life sentences from the court, 1 for each victim. At the Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage, Wisconsin, where he was serving his sentence, Dahmer expressed regret and wished for his own demise. But his actions had already established him in the public's mind as an absolute monster due to their sheer viciousness and grotesqueness. Unsurprisingly, he was also a target within the jail system. He was attacked twice by other prisoners, although he only lost a fight the first time. But on November 28, 1994, a fellow prisoner beat him in the shower, and he passed away from head injuries as he was being taken to the hospital. Dahmer was slain in a jail brawl, bringing to an unceremonious end the maniacal life and atrocities of this serial killer. Do you think he met the proper end? Or not? I am sure his torment is not over, if you believe in the afterlife. If you found this detailed story of the monster